I guess it had been in high school maybe, so I was probably a freshman. Yeah, freshman.
So my first experience with alcohol was I was probably 4.
I mean, my whole childhood, I guess, my parents always kind of abstained from it, but they quit doing it when I was a young kid, abusing drugs and alcohol. So growing up, it was always, don't do these things because you have a good chance of becoming an alcoholic or a druggie. In high school, decided that I would do my own thing. So I wanted to try it, and it was pretty fun the first time, so fun the next time, and the next time after that. Just kind of went down from there.
I grew up in New Mexico and Colorado. My parents were divorced, so I spent pretty much half my time between the two. My mom was kind of the single mom for a long time, and my dad was an alcoholic, and so he struggled with paying child support, and so my mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs all the time. So I'd go with my grandma and grandpa who owned a bar, and my grandpa and my grandma were both alcoholics, but my grandma had stopped drinking by the time I got about 5, but my papa, he drank pretty much, he was an alcoholic until I was about 12, and then after that he was recovering. And he would have us grandchildren go and get his whiskey for him that he'd hide from my grandma, and he would have us pour the beer and whiskey together, and then he would have us have a cup and have him have a cup. When I was 8, my mom got married to my stepdad, and he seemed like a really great guy, but he turned out to be abusive, just like my dad is. So both my dads were abusive, and my stepdad is also an alcoholic. And when I was about 14, the fighting started to get physical, and I started to engage with my stepdad physically, just fighting with him physically, and drinking just made him really angry, and I liked that. And it was a really big control thing for me. If I could come home drunk, then he couldn't do anything about it. And then, partying was fun, and I liked it. And I liked the feeling of being out of control when it started. And so I started the major hard drinking when I was 14 and a half. I got alcohol poisoning from drinking at a major party where I was just drinking vodka straight. And then from then on, it just escalated. Should have taught me a lesson, but it didn't.
Probably right around the time, a little bit before my daughter was born. And when I, decided, well, I'm going to need to be responsible for more than somebody other than myself. So, and at that time I wasn't a Christian yet, but it's kind of hard to be responsible for more than one person and do those things, I think.
Well, when I became pregnant with Alyssa, I had to move out of my house. My mom was afraid for my safety with my stepdad. It was really expensive to drink and do drugs, and Chris wasn't quite ready to quit yet, and I was the one that was pregnant, so it made more sense for me to quit. And I didn't want to hurt the baby at all, and so that was it. That was the reason that I stopped at first. And then when you go to parties sober that you've always been drunk or high at before, you realize that your friends are really stupid, and it's not fun. That was really big on it, because I got to look and say, this is just not cool. It's not cool to throw up on yourself at all. And then not doing all that suddenly left me so empty. I couldn't believe how just destitute I felt. I just had nothing. And I went from being not the center of parties, but a big part of parties. If there was a party, I was loud and there, and I'm still loud, but it was just so nothing to me. And that God just showed himself to me in such a huge way, because without God, I don't know where I would have been.
Well, God's changed the way I've thought about those things. He's changed the way as far as setting the example. The reason that he has, because he's put people in my life that aren't saved, and I don't want to be responsible in that type of sense for bringing them down or causing them to stumble, even for that matter.
Well, Chris continued to drink a while after and do some drugs a while after I quit and became a Christian. And watching that as a wife really changed my perspective. And then realizing that I was just continuing a disease that was in our family. You know, there's only about 4 people who are not alcoholics or drug addicts in my family. And to realize that just, it really broke my heart, and I felt really cheated. I felt like I'd just been lied to.
I was going through some things at work. I'd gotten in a car accident, and I didn't have any insurance. And at the time, I was delivering and selling beds, mattresses, and whatnot. So I kind of needed a driver's license for my job. So I was looking at losing my driver's license. And I was really just struggling with what was going on in my life. You know, at the time, I guess I was a Christian, you know, and just trying to figure out what God had planned for me. I mean, if this is what He wants for the rest of my life, then so be it. But, you know, it's just a desire that there was more to it. I remember distinctly the night I'd gotten pulled over again for running a red light, and just coming home and being so depressed because that was it. I was going to lose my driver's license, you know, and that was my life that I knew of, you know. I worked there for 5 years, you know, and so much has happened in those 5 years. I had 1 daughter born, I got married, and then another one on the way, and we were looking at moving, you know, and I was thinking, you know, what is the deal? And I just laid there in bed. I didn't even eat dinner, and I just, what's going on? And I was reading my Bible every night, you know. I was like, well, if I'm doing this, then this gotta happen, you know. Kind of thinking, you know, well, if I'm doing my part, then God's gotta take care of me, type of thing. And yeah, and I remember reading in the book of Job, because that's where I just happened to be. And I guess it was the verse, you know, my Redeemer lives. I know that my Redeemer lives. No matter what happens, I know that He lives. And that struck me. I felt a strong call to be a part, participate in what God was doing locally, nationally, or globally.
God showing me that and opening my eyes just made it so clear to me that the more that I abstain and that I show other people in my family especially that you can do it and that God can redeem you.